Okay, we are live. We are going to go through and look at these player props for week 11. Not going to lie, last week we did a good job. Last week we are turning the ship around. Y'all know we had a couple losing weeks in a row there. We'll recap every single bet we've ever made. That way we can be completely transparent with y'all in this video. Of course, we're still up on the season. Thank God we hit a couple bets last week. If we had another losing week last week, it was just going to be so damn embarrassing. I'll tell you that. And also, this week in particular, I honestly think that the lines are a little bit better than what we have had like over the past month. There are a couple things that I'm looking at going, okay, of course, underdog fantasy, 9 times out of 10, they probably know more than we do, but there are a couple lines that I think that we can actually take advantage of. Of course, if you have not already, make sure you go down there, drop a like on this live stream, subscribe to the channel as well, even though I know everybody out in the stream right now, of course, is already subscribed. And if you have not, make sure you go sign up for Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK. That is where we are going to be making all these prop bets today on Underdog Fantasy. Not only do they have prop bets, but you can also get into weekly drafts. If you want to draft a team just for week 11 against 10 other random people, 11 other random people, I don't know how the math checks out. Of course, you can go over there, and when you make your first deposit and you use promo code FLOCK, A, it supports this channel more than you would ever believe, and B, probably more importantly, Underdog Fantasy matches you dollar for dollar on that deposit up to $100. You can find the link in the live chat. Find it in the description of the live stream, the comment section, whatever you were looking at. And one other misconception that we've had is a lot of people think that if they can't do sports betting in their state, they can't do Underdog Fantasy. No, Underdog Fantasy is classified as like DFS. If you can submit a DraftKings lineup, if you can submit a FanDuel lineup, you should be able to play Underdog Fantasy. So make sure you go to that link in the description of the video. Use promo code FLOCK. And real quick, let me go and we'll recap everything that we've made, not only this past week, but also previous to that. Now, this list is getting really long with how long we've been doing this. So I will hide this and we're just going to go really quickly. And of course, you are going to see a whole lot of red bets. And oh my God. Okay. For a second, I thought we were going to be lagging out. You're going to see a whole lot of red bets, but keep in mind, it's like -10, -17, -17. We're doing parlays here. So you're going to see a lot fewer green, but these green numbers are going to be a lot bigger. And this is our losing stretch that we had. And that's why I said if we did not win this past week, it was going to be embarrassing. It was going to be hard to come back out here. But then all you really have to do is hit these big ones, +120, +120. And then here's where we had our hot stretch at the not beginning of the season. This was more mid-year, 150, 150. 120, 200, 204, 120, 100, 300 right here, 300, 100. Yeah, so we got that mid stretch at the beginning. That way we are definitely still profitable in the season, +150, +240. +60, +120. Yeah, so we are still profitable on the season, but I will tell you, we need to start winning these bets. Now we need to get a couple more wins under the belt so we can try to have a respectable finish to the end of this year. And let's go through and we're going to take this game by game how we always do. We're going to start it off with the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans. The first line that stands out to me for this Titans game, keep in mind Jeremy McNichols will not be playing. Donta Foreman did lead this team in both snaps and touches this past week. Of course, let me throw up the hook 'em horns. Y'all know I love me some Donta Foreman. But at the end of the day, to have him at his over-under at 58.5 rushing yards here, this seems so damn aggressive. I don't know if I can get to Donta Foreman at 58.5 rushing yards. Now, the thing is, if we were going to go through, if we were going to be making the bet on Foreman, I don't want to be betting against this entire Tennessee Titans rushing backfield because this is such a good matchup against the Houston Texans. So what I'm actually going to be doing instead is Underdog Fantasy has a lot of these rivals lines that usually we don't look at because usually I think that picking the over-unders on individual players is going to be significantly better. But this one instance, I think I would prefer making a bet that this backfield's closer to a 50-50 split. Y'all know I've been a hater for Adrian Peterson this entire season. The second that he signed, I was not really telling anybody to go pick up Adrian Peterson. But here to view him just as a light where you're getting 23.5 extra yards compared to Donta Foreman, and I think this can be close to a 50-50 split. I'm actually going to be betting Adrian Peterson plus 23.5 rushing yards compared to Donta Foreman here. And speaking of the rivals lines, it seems aggressive to have, Ryan Tannehill and Tyrod Taylor this damn close. I don't know if that's something else we want to be doing. Maybe we just go back to see what we have with these individual over-unders and try to pick out a line this way. But one thing that we could potentially do is just make a bet overall that this Tennessee Titans offense maybe isn't going to be able to lean on the run as much as what people are expecting, and essentially just make the correlation in that there aren't going to be much rushing yards overall here. And maybe we make that bet by assuming that there are going to be just more passing attempts for this Tennessee Titans offense. And if we're going to be doing that, I guess we can take the over on a Ryan Tannehill line. Now, if we're going to be looking at these passing statistics, keep in mind, the game flow in theory should be where the Tennessee Titans can look to run the ball consistently and they don't necessarily have to throw it. But if you're looking at what we have had from Tannehill so far this season, these lines are actually, pretty conservative. If you're going to be looking at his game log, let me pull this up really quick for anybody who does not have it. He essentially gets to 20 and a half completions. 21, 27, 30, 21, 23. He gets there a decent amount of time. Now, if we're going to be looking at that compared to the passing touchdowns, you know what? I'm actually probably going to be willing to bet the under on passing TDs here. With Ryan Tannehill, he has only hit the over on 1.5 passing touchdowns twice so far this season. Yeah, he has some rushing touchdowns under his belt as well, but you're not actually going to be getting the touches. I think this is a perfect spot to bet the under on Ryan Tannehill passing touchdowns. So I think this is honestly a very strong bet to make. You only have 2 games of over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I think this is closer to a 50-50 split. So we're actually probably going to be pretty damn aggressive with this bet here overall. We'll bet 34 to win 102 since we only need to get 2 things right. And okay, I forgot we have to pick something from this Houston Texans side as well. If we're going to be looking over to Houston, Tyrod Taylor, obviously very disappointing this past week. I don't know if we can talk ourselves into taking the under on Brandon Cooks just because Cooks has had so much volume in this offense. I'm just going to be making the bet that this is going to be a lower passing volume game in general. If we're going to be looking at either the completions or the yardage for Tyrod Taylor, I'd be rather bet on the completions under than we would with the over. And hopefully this game just kind of skews to be not that up tempo. If they can just slow the pace of play down here for this Houston Texans Tennessee Titans game, I think we could really like that. We're going to bet with 34 to win $200 there. And let's go to our next game, which will be the Baltimore Ravens and the Chicago Bears. And last I saw, I got a notification, I believe, that Hollywood Brown is out this game. So let me go through and let me confirm that. And hopefully someone wasn't just trolling us over there on Patreon and telling us that Marquise Brown was out. I'm assuming if Brown is out, we are going to be betting this over here for Sammy Watkins. And we're going to be pretty damn aggressive with it. Yeah, so Hollywood Brown is ruled out. 20 and a half receiving yards here for Sammy. If you're looking at what we had at the beginning part of the season when Sammy Watkins was fully healthy, he's getting there consistently. And this is in the context that you have Hollywood Brown playing. Obviously, Hollywood being the starting wide receiver 1 there for the Baltimore Ravens. With Sammy Watkins, he has gotten to over 20 and a half receiving yards every single week this year besides week 10 against the Miami Dolphins. This is the lock of the week. For the love of God, please, if you have not signed up for Underdog Fantasy yet, just to go bet this over on Sammy Watkins, please fix your life. Please go take that over. We're going to build in the correlation by also taking the over here with Lamar Jackson. Now, the issue is we're going to have to take an over on the Chicago Bears side of things because that's how we're building these teams. We want to continue to build in the correlation into our starting lineup. So if we're betting that this is going to be a higher scoring game in general, I'm not going to be a massive fan of taking the Darnell Mooney over. Obviously, looks like we're not going to have Allen Robinson in this game. I think without Allen Robinson, it doesn't necessarily give a massive bump up to Darnell Mooney. I think instead, maybe I would prefer to look over to what we'll have with David Montgomery. If Montgomery is able to get up to 15 to 20 touches this game, I think 83.5 total yards is not out of the question. So we're going to take the over on Lamar, the over on Sammy Watkins, and the over on David Montgomery. Not going to, you know what? This is another bet that I feel very comfortable with. The past few weeks, I feel like the past month on Underdog Fantasy has been a lot tougher than the lines they've been putting out this week. Maybe I'm feeling overconfident with how we won last week, but we're going to bet another 34 to win $200 on that bet. Now, going over to our next game, we will have the Miami Dolphins against the New York Jets. Obviously, with New York, you have Joe Flacco now at quarterback. With Michael Carter, he's been trending in the right direction here, definitely. And with Jalen Waddle, I am a pretty big fan of what we have for both the receiving yardage and also the receptions mark here, because it looks like we are not going to have Will Fuller. You're not going to have Devontae Parker in this game. And if you're looking at the targets that Waddle has had, 6, 10, 11, 8, 13. He is getting, consistently about 8 targets a game. To have him at 5.5 receptions, I'm going to feel comfortable to take the over here. It would really come down, are we taking the over on receptions or receiving yards? I would be fine with either, to be completely honest. With Tua Tagovailoa, I wish this was total yards rather than just passing. If it's just going to be passing, I think honestly it's going to be a hard spot for me to decide to go and take that over with Tua. Obviously, it's a decent matchup against the New York Jets. I would like to take the over on Tua if we already have that built-in correlation with Jalen Waddle here. If you're looking at Tua Tagovailoa, however, he's only gotten here twice so far this season. He got injured in week 2. We can't really look at the Baltimore Ravens game. He only came in halfway through. So, out of the 3 games that I'm assuming actually out of the 4 games he's played, he's been able to get there for the Miami Dolphins. 2 out of those 4, it's a decent matchup. So you know what? I'm not in love with what we actually have from Tua Tagovailoa here, but I think we can take the over just because we bet the over with Jalen Waddle at 249.5 passing yards. And if we're going to be looking at the New York Jets, my initial reaction is going to say, let's go with Elijah Moore. Even with Elijah Moore seeing his role, have a step back just with the addition of Corey Davis this past week, he is still getting up there 44, 84, 67 receiving yards over the past 3 weeks. We're going to be betting the over on Elijah Moore. Even though I'm not that confident with this, it's more so to build in correlation with the Miami Dolphins side. I don't like this bet nearly as much as the first 2, so we're only going to bet $17 to win $102 there. Let's go down to our next game, which will be the New Orleans Saints and the Philadelphia Eagles. This is my favorite line of the week, and my God, please. Like I said, the past month, y'all know I've been coming out in these live streams, been going, okay, well, I don't like this bet. I don't like this bet. It looks like nothing's really helping us out here. This is a little bit different. This week, I feel like Underdog Fantasy, I don't know if it's the algorithm. I don't want to talk on it. Obviously, Underdog Fantasy, they're going to beat us in the long haul, considering the fact that Underdog Fantasy wouldn't be paying me to get you to sign up. They wouldn't be paying you to sign up at the same time if they didn't know more than us. But still, Dallas Goddard at 45.5 receiving yards. I know if you're looking as of late, that line's not great for Dallas Goddard. If you're just looking at the production with what he's given us in a raw yardage standpoint over the past 3 weeks. But if we have to remember, the Dallas Goddard this past week left early with the concussion. The month previous, he's getting there 43, 72, 70 receiving yards. And keep in mind, this is an offense that's not throwing the ball at all. They were just limiting Jalen Hurts to under 20 passing attempts a game, and they were going out there and running the ball over and over and over again. So I actually think we want to be taking the over on the Dallas Goddard receiving yards. If we're taking the over on the Goddard receiving yards, we want to be taking the over with Jalen Hurts as well to build in that correlation. And then on the other side of this, if that was total yards for Mark Ingram at 63.5, I would definitely be taking the over. But the issue is that is just going to be rushing yards. Trevor Siemian, God, I don't even know what we want to do with this New Orleans Saints passing offense. You have been having more production going in the direction of Adam Troutman as of late. If you're looking at what Mark Ingram gave us this past week, keep in mind, you'll have Tony Jones good to go this week as well. And Mark Ingram got there as 63.5 rushing yards, 47 last week, 43 the week before that. You know what? With Tony Jones looking like he's coming back, I don't think we need to build in the correlation by taking an over on Ingram. Maybe we can take the under on Mark Ingram here. I'd hate to try to pin down one of these wide receivers to bet on. If this was total yards for Mark Ingram, I'd definitely be going through and taking the under. And I actually think Ingram is someone that we should be playing in fantasy this week. But have him at 63.5 rushing yards overall, I think that's going to be a bet I'm not a massive fan of. So we're going to bet $17 to win $102 here. And also, let me give a massive disclaimer out. I've had some people in the comment section going, okay, Mason, I made all these bets rolling with you this week. Don't do that. I'm an idiot. I thought we have said this so many times before. We've been profitable so far this season, but at the end of the day, I am stupid. Please don't be just following me blindly with these bets here. Please be making your own if you're going to decide to sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Now let's go and let's find our next line. We got Jonathan Taylor at 115. I know Jonathan Taylor obviously has been absurd. He has been crushing this mark every single week, and it hasn't even been close. But he hasn't been going up against the toughest run defense in the NFL. It's going to be a much tougher spot between the Buffalo Bills and the Indianapolis Colts this week in particular. Now, looking at the Buffalo side, Honestly, really the only line that I'm a pretty big fan of would be Josh Allen here at 315 for his total yardage. I think that you could potentially go through and take the Josh Allen side of this, especially if you're looking at Las Vegas telling us that this Buffalo Bills offense should be hyper productive. I mean, he gets there this week, he gets there the past week, he gets there. I mean, he's been right there every single week. I'm taking the Josh Allen over here. And I think if we're taking the Allen over, we probably want to be going and building in that correlation into the starting lineup. Let me check out what we've seen with Carson Wentz and if it would be an intriguing spot to take the over at 233. Obviously, this will be a tougher matchup than what we have previously seen, but maybe this team can't be as run heavy as what they're used to. So if you're looking over the past month, 180, 272, 231, 150, 223. In a tough matchup, I don't think we want to be taking the over on Carson Wentz. I'm actually possibly going to be taking the under on Jonathan Taylor. And if we're taking the over on Josh Allen, I want to be building in a correlated spot with one of his receivers here. Obviously, Diggs is the first guy that your brain goes to. But still, Sanders, maybe this is an intriguing buy low spot on Emmanuel Sanders. He's still been out there for damn near every single snap. Now, he didn't get there this past week with only 27 receiving yards. The week prior, he had 65. I mean, this past week, he only had 2 targets overall against the Jets. Obviously, it was a pretty bad matchup overall. Now, if we're going to be looking at his receptions, 3.5, not in love with that. Let's see what we have with Cole Beasley. Potentially, if I don't find a single line that we like for any of these receivers, we may just be staying away from this game in general. Yeah, so Cole Beasley, for him to get to 4.5 receptions, this is not something he can consistently rely on either. You know what? I think that we're actually going to be staying away from this game. I just don't see a way that we can build in one of those Buffalo wide receivers confidently. And with Detroit, we're passing on the Detroit Lions here. No idea what to expect. I mean, actually, you know what? I love this under on Donovan Peoples-Jones at 44.5 receiving yards. Donovan Peoples-Jones has had some random spike weeks, but the volume is not consistent in Cleveland. Donovan Peoples-Jones has had 23 targets so far this season. So to put him at 44.5 receiving yards, yes, of course, you have no Odell Beckham Jr. here. I still think this is a very aggressive mark. I'm going to be taking the under on Mayfield, the under on Donovan Peoples-Jones, even though this is a great matchup. And if we're taking these unders, I think we should be going through and doing the same on the other side, just assuming that this is probably going to be a game that's very low scoring. And if we're going to look to take an under with the Detroit Lions, Tim Boyle, of course, is the first player that comes to mind. DeAndre Swift, they really didn't use as a receiving running back this past week, which was really interesting to see. Hawkinson at 36.5 receiving yards. There's no way in hell I could go through and take the under on TJ Hawkinson. Yes, this past week he's completely erased from this offense. Before that, 89, 48, 74 receiving yards, crushing that mark every single week. With DeAndre Swift, I mean, 33 carries this past week, but still at the end of the day, his targets did come down. This is a running back that hasn't gotten to 40 receiving yards since week 7. And that was obviously the big play game against the Los Angeles Rams. So I love Swift overall, but so we can take the under on Baker Mayfield and so we can take the under on Donovan Peoples-Jones, I'm going to be betting the under on DeAndre Swift there as well. We're going to take this $17 to win 102. Let's go to our next game. This next one's going to be the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. Green Bay, you got Devontae Adams up at almost 100. Oh my God. They have A.J. Dillon at 110 total yards. They have A.J. Dillon for almost identical the amount of yardage as Dalvin Cook. Now, y'all know I have loved A.J. Dillon. I have him on so many drafts that we drafted on Underdog Fantasy. We had to take the under on A.J. Dillon here, no? This seems extremely aggressive. I have him ranked as a running back 1 in fantasy this week, but still to have him at 110 total yards, essentially, I think that is so damn aggressive. I would be wanting to make a bet that maybe this entire Green Bay Packers passing offense, I mean, even to have Rodgers at 275 passing yards, the pace of play has been so down in Green Bay. Maybe we just go through and make the bet that this entire game's a little bit lower scoring than a lot of people want to expect. I mean, with Rodgers for 275 passing yards, he's gotten there twice this season. He has literally beat this over twice. Maybe they skew to be a little bit more pass happy with no Aaron Jones, but Aaron Jones is a great receiving running back out of the backfield. We're going to take some unders here. Devontae Adams even at 97.5 receiving yards. Y'all know I have Devontae Adams everywhere, but still at the end of the day, God damn, this caught me completely off guard. I was not expecting this at all with what you had. I mean, Devontae Adams has gotten here 3 times so far this season as well. We're going into week 11. you know what? I can't be building in a 4-player. We're limiting ourselves on 3 bets per ticket, so I'm not going to take the Devontae Adams under here, even though it's definitely appealing. And then we're just going to go through. We're going to assume that this is a low-scoring game by the Minnesota Vikings if they're going up against a tough Green Bay Packers defense, and we're assuming that's going to be a lower-scoring game in general. So we're going to take the Dalvin Cook under at 111.5 total yards. So we're going to bet 17 to win $100 there. Now let's go down to our next game. This next game will be the Washington football team as well as the Carolina Panthers. We're taking the under with Cam Newton passing yards. I mean, we actually have reports saying that PJ Walker will be playing snaps this week. Christian McCaffrey at 126 overall yards. We're going to be staying away from that most likely. I think going over and looking at this offense for the Washington football team, probably going to be staying away from the majority of these lines. Obviously, this is a very tough defense by the Carolina Panthers. And if we're going to be looking at Taylor Heineke, this is a quarterback that should be planning on starting the rest of the season for Washington here. I mean, he's getting to 225 passing yards very often so far this season. The issue is it's going to be a pretty tough matchup. I actually may like to bet the over with McLaurin here. As we've discussed, it is a tough matchup overall, but with Terry McLaurin, he's had the volume consistently in Washington, where I think with the air yards, we should be expecting a bounce back sometime soon. I mean, he really has only gotten here twice so far this season. And if we want to bet the under on Newton, maybe we just make the bet that this is going to be a disappointing game overall. So even though, you know what, I think so we can get this under on the Cam Newton passing yardage, we're probably going to have to take an under on Washington. And we're taking an under on Washington. I like the upside that Terry McLaurin has, but to see that he has only hit 63.5 receiving yards twice so far this season, 3 times so far this season, even if we're expecting a bounce back, like I do think that this is a little bit aggressive in a really tough matchup. And then DJ Moore, obviously Moore has been trending in the wrong direction as of late. I mean, if we're going to be going through and looking at what you've gotten from DJ Moore, 24, 32, 59, 73, 73 receiving yards. So he's still getting there a decent amount of time. I do want to take an under on either DJ Moore or Christian McCaffrey here. With McCaffrey, if we were guaranteed to have PJ Walker in the game the entire time, I probably would take the over on McCaffrey. Just the issue is whenever we know that Cam Newton's not going to be checking the ball down out of the backfield as often as what you would have from some other players, I'm a little bit more concerned about that 126-yard mark. We're going to take the under from Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson's just been one of the worst wide receivers so far in the NFL this year. We're going to bet $17 to win 100 on that bet. And let's go down. I believe we only have 1 or 2 more games that we can be looking at today. And yeah, we have the 49ers going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jeff Wilson at 77.5 rushing yards here. Brandon Ayuk at 45.5 receiving yards. Obviously, the expectation for this game is you are going to have the Jacksonville Jaguars trailing the majority of the game. They have Dan Arnold finally. We're going to take the over on Dan Arnold. Let me just get that out of here right now. And if we're going to, you know what? I can't take that over on Trevor Lawrence. This is going to be a stay away game from us. I think the under on Jeff Wilson at 77.5 rushing yards is intriguing, but I just want to stay away from that game in general. At Cincinnati, we have Joe Mixon, 85.5 yards. They have Joe Mixon for 20 yards less than what they currently have A.J. Dillon. Like, they have Joe Mixon for about 25 yards less than what they have A.J. Dillon for. I think we can take the over on Joe Mixon. I think the over on T. Higgins is even intriguing. But you know what? Instead, this is going to be a clear under spot for Derek Carr at 281 passing yards. I mean, since you had no Henry Ruggs in this offense, this Las Vegas Raiders team has looked significantly worse. We're going to take the under on 281 passing yards for Derek Carr, the under on 70.5 for Darren Waller, and the over on Joe Mixon. There we're going to bet 17 to win 102. And you've noticed the majority of these bets, we're trying to stick it. A 3-player slip. A 3-player slip, in my opinion, is the best way to go about this with the success that we've had so far this season. And with Arizona, Seattle, maybe on Sunday morning we make some bets here. The issue is we just don't have the official Kyler news, so they don't have enough lines out for us to go through and play around with that. So we're going to have to skip it down. In our last game we're going to be looking at will be the Kansas City Chiefs and the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, no Amari Cooper here. No Amari Cooper. Oh my gosh. You're expecting this game to be so high scoring. The issue is I think that you have a wide range of outcomes on a couple of these players. Like Gallup, I want to be surprised if he goes for 20 receiving yards. I want to be surprised if he goes for 110. Honestly, I think we've made enough bets this week. I don't think we need to go through and force it with the Dallas Cowboys with no Amari Cooper. So we are going to be avoiding that. And of course, thank you so much for anybody who checked out this live stream. And of course, make sure that you don't go and copy our bets 1-for-1. Please go make your own bets on Underdog Fantasy. Share with me whatever you win. And of course, go sign up with promo code FLOCK. When you make your first deposit with promo code FLOCK, you actually get matched dollar for dollar on that deposit up to $100. So please take advantage of that. You can find the link in the live chat. You can find it in the description of the live stream. You can find it in the comment section. And yeah, Underdog Fantasy is available in damn near every single state. Not available in Nevada, Washington State, Louisiana, Hawaii, and maybe some super small one like Wyoming. Pretty sure it's available everywhere else. If you can play DraftKings, if you can play FanDuel, you can play Underdog Fantasy. Make that first deposit with promo code FLOCK. Support this channel more than you could ever believe. And of course, thank you so much for coming out. I will be live streaming again tonight to answer